Imagine that you are a marathon runner. You have trained your entire life to be this amazing marathon athlete. Every year, there is a major marathon which you sign up for. You go to the race, you enter the race, you are at the starting line of that race. The race starts, you run, and you continue all the way to the finish line. And during the last mile of the marathon, you notice a new runner running next to you. Now, this runner came out of nowhere. You don't know where they are. You guys both finish at the same time. You ask that other runner, I didn't see you at the starting line. Where were you? You see, I paid to start at the very last mile. So as content creators, we're going to talk about paying to get ahead of everybody else and these 7 disadvantages that could very well, crush you. Let's get started.
Sound matters. Be heard. Welcome to the podcast where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes tips to make your own show sound truly spectacular. This is Podtastic Audio.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing today? I want to say thank you so much for being here. I am Chris, and I am from the original Chris and Christine Show podcast. You can find out every single thing about that show on a website which I built. Yeah, you can check that out at chrisandchristineshow.com. If you can't remember that, don't you worry. There's a link to it, in the show notes of this very episode. You scroll on down and there it is. But here is Podtastic Audio, which is a show which I have created to help you create your show. Do you love podcasting? How is your podcast coming along? As podcasters or content creators in general, you really have to make a decision on who your show is for and why are you physically doing it? Like, why are you podcasting? For some people, their why is just because they want to have fun. Like, I do enjoy doing this, but if nobody actually ever listened to any of my episodes, or if nobody actually wrote in and gave me some kind of feedback or liked any of my posts or watched any of my videos or anything I ever did, if it's just crickets the entire time, then you almost feel like giving up. And that's probably why a lot of shows do give up because, obviously it does take a little work to get an audience and to build an audience. Now, I know in previous episodes that I have done, I've mentioned about paying for downloads, paying for followers, paying for comments, paying for, ratings and reviews. And surprisingly, I found out that it's more common than you might think. I'm willing to bet that either you or somebody who has purchased podcast promotion in one way or another. It happens a lot. Just this morning, I got an email on the Chris and Christine Show's email, which we do get a lot of junk mail on there from time to time. But I got an email today that said, hey, I can promote your podcast and, follow this link to our services where we guarantee you, when they always say guarantee, what's up with that? Guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. You can't guarantee anybody's going to be popular. You just can't guarantee that someone's going to definitely like you. But anyways, let's just say they do that. And they said they guarantee, 20,000, 10,000, podcast downloads. We guarantee 5,000 to 6,000 new followers on Instagram. We guarantee, which is all a bunch of phony baloney if you ask me. But I do realize that there is a growing need for people that want to perceive themselves to be more popular than they really are. So let's just say you're observing a podcast or a podcast show and you kind of wonder, did they really pay for their followers? Do they really get that many downloads? Do they really have that many followers on, say, social media? So here are a few tips on how you can tell whether or not a show has actually purchased fake downloads or comments or any of that kind of stuff, if it's really, truly, really organic, or if it's just phony baloney, fake nonsense. So one way you can tell is if they have inconsistency in engagement levels. You see, if a podcast has an unusual high number of downloads, so they say, or views, YouTube or whatnot, this could be a sign that they're artificially inflating their metrics. True authentic content usually leads to a balance between consumption and interaction. So a significant disparity may raise suspicions whether or not they are actually paying for fake stuff. So another way that you can find out whether or not a show is all fake and not real is if all of a sudden they have unexplained surge in spike in followers or downloads or views. This can be a huge red flag. You see, genuine growth tends to happen gradually, organically. As a podcaster, we all know this. Typical organic growth usually happens at 1% to 2%. So a sudden spike in anything usually is a total red flag, whether or not they actually purchased downloads or followers or so on and so forth. So the last thing here really on how you can tell whether or not a show really purchased fake anything really is if their comments in whether it's YouTube or with, say, even ratings and reviews, for example, if the comment section have this kind of generic, just basic comment, great show, love the host, great show, great questions, great interview, great host, just very generic speech, it could mean that these actual comments were in fact purchased. A little side story on that is that I found out that a podcaster was actually paying for, reviews and comments in Apple Podcasts because everybody swears by leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts and it better be a 5-star because if you don't, I'm going to get mad, whatever, who cares? So they were paying a company to actually write all these great, wonderful 5-star reviews and they were all basically the same thing until one day, for whatever reason, the podcaster that was paying decided to either stop paying them, miss a payment, or perhaps maybe switch to another promotional team to take care of these writing these posts for them. Well, the original, podcast promoter company decided to write all kinds of negative hate mail within their Apple Podcast comments and reviews. This show is fake. I am only getting paid to write these reviews. These reviews are all fake. They are physically paying us to do this. That is where something like this can really, really backfire on you if you're not too careful if you're doing this. Now you're thinking, Chris, what does any of this matter? If somebody pays for stuff, who cares? What does it matter? Well, it really matters if you are trying to get a sponsor or advertiser for your show, which all goes down to your why. Why are you podcasting? A lot of people say, I'm podcasting because I want to be big and famous and I want to grow a great audience and a great show so I can get sponsors and get paid for advertising and so on and so forth. And a lot of those metrics are based solely on your downloads or your YouTube plays or your comments and so on and so forth. All of those things, that's an entire package. More than just your downloads, you're looking at everything, your social media following, your interactions, everything. Take all that into consideration. A podcast, sponsor might decide to do business with you based on those factors. And if you're inflating those factors, if you're deliberately lying to the sponsor, we're talking real money here. That's the same as stealing. So now that I've touched on how you, as an observer, can really spot out and sniff out the fakies from the real ones, why would someone do it in the first place? What are the advantages of actually, paying for a promoter to make their little show appear bigger than it really is? Well, one is, obviously, it gives you a perceived popularity. You see a higher number of followers, likes, comments, views, so on and so forth, including downloads, may give the appearance that your show is actually popular, which could attract, genuine followers and engagement. And sometimes it actually may increase your popularity within certain guests that you want to get for your show. Let's just say that a certain guest you're going after may only go on your show if you appear that you're bigger than you really are. Like you have bigger downloads or you have bigger viewers on YouTube or a bigger Instagram following. They may see that as oh, that's a show I want to go on. And really, when it comes to guest interviews, the main reason why a guest was going to be on your show in the first place is because they want to get in front of your audience. And if you are appearing that you have a massive audience to the guest, they may see that as an advantage. Now, another advantage is that it obviously will boost your visibility. You see, a higher engagement rate might temporarily, now the key word here is temporarily, boost your content's visibility, potentially reaching a wider audience. All in theory. This is reasons why somebody would pay for a podcast promoter to promote their stuff. Now, the final advantage on why somebody would pay for a promoter to promote all their stuff and fluff their stuff, fluff them up bigger than they really are, is initially it might give you some credibility. Now, surface level stuff, on the surface, some individuals or businesses may believe that a large following or higher engagement rates indicates credibility and success. It's all a smoke and mirrors, really is what it is. So, like I said earlier, that sponsor that wants to sponsor you, they may say, oh, you look like you have a massive audience. You've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. You've got 1 million downloads. It looks like you have all those things. I mean, on the surface level, it does. At first glance, it does. So they may decide to do business with you. But what's funny about that is that if you lie and say you have 150,000 followers on Instagram and 2 million downloads and all this great stuff, but in reality, you have like 5% of those numbers, like such a small amount, right? We're talking maybe 5,000 or 10,000 followers, but really you say you've got 200,000. And a company decides to do business with you and they assume you have the 200,000. So when you advertise their product and services, and you should know this, that usually when you advertise a product or service, usually the engagement rate on that product and service is usually about 2 to 3%. So if you think of 2 to 3% of 200,000, it's still a hefty number. Now, 2 to 3% on a much lower number is a much lower number. So the company, they're going to see the results from people that actually do business with them. And if they're posting on your show, paying money to advertise on your show, but getting literally no results at all, that's a big red flag and a big warning, because obviously just doing the math itself, you should have at least some engagement. But if you're getting no engagement on a massive crowd that they say they've got a massive crowd, I would pull out immediately. I know you're probably thinking, hey, Chris, I already paid for these services. I've already been doing this. And I like the fact that my numbers look bigger than they really are. And the funny thing about the numbers really is, especially with podcasting, like audio podcasting, the only ones that actually physically can see the download numbers are you, the podcaster themselves. So if you pay to inflate those numbers, you get to see those. And maybe you can do a screenshot and share that kind of stuff. Whatever. It's not as visible as, say, YouTube plays, YouTube subscribers, and social media following and social media views and things of that sort. So just be aware that if you're paying directly for downloads, you are the only one that can see that. So now that we know some of the advantages and what to look out for and things like that, so if you did pay for stuff, here are 7 disadvantages to you as a podcaster and content creator. 7 disadvantages on why, if you decide to pay for podcast promotion, these are things that can and probably will happen to you if you go down this path. So starting it off with the number 1 disadvantage is inauthenticity. Of course, paying for followers and paying for engagements creates an inauthentic online presence. You are totally fake. People may eventually notice the lack of genuine interaction, leading to a loss in trust. Remember, trust is something very hard to gain, and when it's gone, it is gone for good. Your audience will not trust you, and anybody coming in may perceive you to be, they got some popularity, something going on. But if they find out very quickly that you are full of crap, that you are totally fake, everything you do is fake, then it's going to be hard getting them back. And I don't think you'll ever will get those people back, which turns around, you're going to have to go back and find new suckers to follow your stuff. to follow your content. It's a cycle going around and around, finding new people to follow you because of the real ones, people that found out about you, they left. Okay, so moving on to number 2, algorithmic impact. You see, social media is all based on these algorithms. Everyone's trying to break the YouTube algorithm, Instagram algorithm, Twitter algorithm. I guess they all got an algorithm they're working on. All social media really does. But all these things are designed to prioritize content based on genuine engagement. You see, engagement is what fuels social media. If you are artificially inflating metrics, it may not result in a better visibility over time as algorithms prioritize content that genuinely resonates with users. So staying on that same theme with number 3, and that is poor engagement quality. You see, if you're paying for followers and you're paying for people to physically, download your show, quotation marks, download your show, if you're paying for these kind of things, these people, or even if they are real people that are getting paid to download your stuff, they are not generally interested in your content. What do they care? They're getting paid to play it. They're just clicking a box. So they're not interested in your content. Because they're not interested in your content, there is a low quality of interactions, if there's any interactions at all, which can impact your entire brand in a negative way. And that is no place you want to be, let me tell you. So moving on to number 4. Now, number 4 is obviously a big one because it's one thing that any con artist, any scammer really fears about the most, and that is the risk of exposure. You see, many social media platforms actively work to identify and remove fake accounts and engagements. So if you're paying, for all these fake engagements and paying for all these fake followers and fake stuff, social media, they are trying to get rid of this nonsense. So, if your account has been flagged for having, paid for all these fake things, it might not be good for you. You could face penalties such as reduced visibility or even the dreaded suspension where you are blocked, banned, kicked off. Sayonara, you're out of here. And that's not a place that anybody wants to be. If you're trying to build a brand, you're trying to build, content, and you're trying to get followers and viewers and listeners, if you are physically, blacklisted, that's the worst place you can be. And if you do these kind of things, you're only putting yourself in a spot where that physically could happen to you. So the 5th disadvantage, or for paying for comments, likes, followers, downloads, so on and so forth, is that, if you're paying for this stuff, there are better things you can spend your money on. So why waste your resources? You see, investing money in buying followers and engagements may not provide a significant return on investment in terms of genuine business outcomes or brand growth. Like I said, if you're trying to sell something, with your business or with your podcast, if you're using it to promote your business, but all of your engagements and followers are fake, they don't really exist, you're trying to sell something to people that aren't really even there. It's like pretend followers. And in the land of make-believe, pretend followers are only going to buy pretend things. Now, moving on to number 6. Now, this is probably at the core of all of this, a really good reason why you should not be doing this, and that is for legal and ethical concerns. Hey, do you ever read the rules and regulations when you sign up for any social media platform? Do you ever look at that stuff? Come on, really? You don't? I mean, everybody does, right? Well, the reason why they have all those rules and guidelines in place is for people that do these kind of things. So what happens is some of these platforms will explicitly prohibit the use of third-party services from buying followers, likes, or engagements. It's in the fine print. See, violating these platform rules can result in, guess what? Yeah, getting you banned, your account suspended, and poof, you are kicked off. You are gone. Good luck. Sayonara. See you later. So you have to be aware of these things. If you're going to play with fire, you could physically be burned in more ways than one. And now moving on to the seventh reason why doing these kind of things, paying for promoters, paying for things can really screw you up as a podcaster and or content creator. Now, this is a big one. It's probably the biggest one of all. And that is, if you do these things, you could damage your reputation. See, your reputation is massive and you do not want to screw things up because you can be seen as a fake or a fraud. You see, once discovered, the act of buying followers and engagement can damage your reputation. It may seem as an attempt to deceive or manipulate, which can lead to negative perceptions among your audience. You see, your audience trust is so massive, you do not want to lose that or burn it. So basically, you want to try to build your audience organically, and that does take time. Unfortunately, a lot of us do not have the patience for that time. So what we decide to do is go and pay for these things and buy things and buy followers and buy downloads and buy views and buy this stuff. But it can hurt you in the long run. So it's always better to have a real audience, an engaged audience through meaningful content and have genuine interactions with your audience. If the more audience interactions you have, the better. And even if you have a smaller audience, it's okay because I'd rather have 100 dedicated listeners that constantly sent in feedback and comments and they constantly interacted with me on a regular basis than 1 million fake nobodies that never ever commented anything, at least anything relevant anyways. There was no real connection, no real conversations. Hey, I want to say thank you once again for playing this episode and listening all the way through to the end. If you know somebody that is possibly paying for fake followers, fake downloads, fake things, please share this episode directly to them. This show is for them to wake up and realize that potentially what they're doing can harm themselves in the long run. You play with fire, eventually you can be burned. So until next time, happy podcasting.